Adam, there is no doubt this is a very, very good opponent. Kansas is number one in the country. They've only played one game, as the Tar Heels have, but this is a really high-quality team and opponent that Carolina is going to go see.
What a great game. I mean, this is the kind of game that you come to Carolina to play. Credit to both programs for being willing to play it. Hubert Davis just sort of walked into the office one day last year and said, hey, let's play a home-and-home with Kansas. And so the Tar Heels called the Jayhawks, and Jayhawks said, that sounds good. And so now it's going to happen. Carolina going to Fog Allen Fieldhouse tonight. The Jayhawks coming back to the Smith Center next year. Kind of unusual to have a big-time non-conference home-and-home like this, not in some sort of neutral setting. But this is fun. This is where these games should be played. Carolina and Kansas have such a long history intertwined with each other, and it's great to have this early in the season.
This series overall is tied at 6, but Kansas has clearly had the better of it as of late. They have won the last 4 meetings, all of which have come in the NCAA tournament. Of course, the last one in the championship game in 2022. Carolina has been to Allen Fieldhouse before, but just once, and that was in the 1960-61 season. So long time ago, Carolina won on December 17th, 1960. Frank McGuire still the head coach at that point in time for the Tar Heels. So they have not been there any time as of late. Adam, a couple things. First, before we get to this matchup specifically, it is interesting, and this is a topic we've talked a lot about. If you look at the non-conference schedule of both of these teams, they are both playing some big-time non-conference matchups. And that's not unusual for either one of them. We certainly know that for Carolina. But I think, and again, we've discussed this, I think this is going to be the norm. And in basketball, Carolina is in that group. I mean, I think we all agree that if you're talking about the top of the top, then it's Carolina, it's Kentucky, it's Kansas, probably Duke, UCLA. And then when you add in some other, the Gonzagas of the world, the Michigan States of the world, you know, all of these teams, Villanova, UConn, that I think they're realizing they've got to play each other. They've got to play each other for non-conference strength of schedule. They've got to play each other for the net. They've got to play each other for interest. And so you see, I mean, obviously Carolina and Duke are going to play each other twice a year all the time, but Kansas plays Duke in a neutral setting. They're a part of that Champions Classic. They're going to play Michigan State. Yeah, Carolina's, as we know, playing UCLA, playing Florida. The Heels are going to Maui, where there's a bunch of great teams this year, maybe not in the future, but this year, including UConn and Iowa State, who's highly rated this year, and a bunch of good teams. So the point of that, Adam, is I think we are going to continue to see some of these type of matchups, whether it's home and home, which, as you said, is maybe a little more unusual, or continuing to find these neutral sites where these teams play one another. I think this is going to keep happening. Hubert Davis has been very open about playing whoever, wherever, whenever. And as you alluded to, this was something he wanted to do, to have this home and home, and Kansas was down for it, and here we are. So I think we will continue to see these type of matchups as we move through at least the next several years in college basketball.
I think it was the Texas AD we talked about recently who said that the thing people were missing in the conference realignment was the value of the marquee home games. That's what this is. Kansas didn't have any trouble selling tickets for tonight. I promise you that. And the Tar Heels won't have any trouble selling tickets next weekend when Kansas comes back. It doesn't matter how big your building is.
Next year, not next weekend. Don't lock that in.
Yeah, no. That'll be American. That's a different team. This is the kind of game people want to come to. Imagine if next year when Kansas comes, what if that game's on a Friday and there's a home football game on Saturday? What a great weekend in Chapel Hill. All of a sudden you've made almost a holiday weekend out of just like a November weekend. And this is what you have to do. You want to fill up all 22,000 of those seats whenever you get a chance. They will be filled for a game like this. Allen Fieldhouse seats 16 or 17. They'll all be full tonight. And this is what you want. I mean, here's the tricky part, though. If you want to play all these games, you have to win some.
Yeah.
You can't say, well, we're going to play nothing but the very best teams and lose them all. I'm not saying the Tar Heels are going to do that, but that's a recipe for putting yourself in trouble once conference play comes around. But as it stands right now, it's a great game to play. You are who you play, and Carolina and Kansas basically are each other, so it should be played.
As far as this version of Kansas, really good team. I mean, there are a lot of familiar names on this team, either from Kansas or from other places that Kansas has just gone and gotten to come to their team. Hunter Dickinson is on the Caleb Love, R.J. Davis, Armando Bacot path of being in college forever. And Carolina has seen him in the past with Michigan. Armando Bacot just, in my opinion, Adam, just dominated every time these two got together, but Armando Bacot's not at Carolina anymore. And so Dickinson, who averaged a double-double a year ago, I mean, he was at 18 points, 11 rebounds a season ago. He was banged up some in the preseason for Kansas, but did play 21 minutes in their win over Howard, had 16 points in that game. And he's one of the better big guys in college basketball, both just with his skill set, his maturity. He's a really good player. You have Shaquille Moore, who is a familiar name. He played at State a while ago, then he's been at Mississippi State, now at Kansas. He's a good player, did not play in their first game. He's also been a little banged up. As Adam and I are recording, I think he'll probably be available for the Jayhawks tonight. Adam, I mean, Rylan Griffin, he was on Alabama last year, a terrific three-point shooter, hit a couple of big shots against Carolina in the NCAA tournament. He is now on Kansas. A.J. Storr, who was the best player on Wisconsin last year, he is now on Kansas. They have a really good shooter, Zeke Mayo, who is actually from Lawrence, started his career at South Dakota State, and he was 5 of 8 from 3 in their first game. They have good freshmen, particularly a guy, Flory Bidunga, who's from the Republic of Congo. He played 16 and a half minutes in their opening season win. He was 6 of 6 from the floor, 13 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. He's 6'9" and uber athletic. So, and that's just some of them. Dwan Harris, who started every game last year for Kansas, is back. They have a ton of good players. It is at their place. They are number 1 in the country, and I think for a reason. KJ Adams, by the way, another player who played in every game and started almost every one of them last year for Kansas. Adam, Carolina is going to be an underdog in this game, and I don't know what the actual points are or whatever, but probably a significant underdog in this game because I think a lot of teams would be. So it is an incredibly difficult test, particularly for the second game of the year, for a group that has new pieces or guys playing larger roles and a couple of freshmen that are going to play big roles. So as challenging a non-conference road trip for Carolina that I can remember at least in the last 10 years or so.
I think we both sort of had this vague idea that Kansas was the number 1 team in the country. And then when you sit down and look at them, you think, I see why. They are the number 1 team in the country on paper. Long way to go. But when you look at the assets they have that Jones just listed, they got a little bit of everything. I think everybody knows about Hunter Dickinson, but he's not the only big guy they have. And they don't just have big guys. They also have perimeter guys. They've got some guys on the wing. They got a great coach. They got a great home court environment.
Yeah.
What else do you need? I like what Hubert Davis pointed out when Carolina played back at Memphis, that it was good that the Tar Heels went and played that exhibition game in an unfamiliar setting. Now, that wasn't quite like this is going to be, but it was something different. You don't want tonight to be the first time Drake Powell ever plays in front of people who are yelling at him. So I think that'll be beneficial. I really don't think this game can do anything but help you when you go to Maui and play that really good field. You've already played a team at least as good as almost all those teams, we think, and that will be beneficial. Will it be very difficult tonight? Yes. But Carolina's got the ACC Player of the Year. Carolina's got players who have played in games like this, and you only got to beat them one time. It's not a best of 7. So go play. We talked about this on the earlier show this week. I don't think the Tar Heels are going to be intimidated by Allen Fieldhouse. No. I mean, it's a great environment by all accounts. I've never seen a game there.
Carolina plays at Cameron every year. Carolina has played in Kentucky multiple times. I mean, Carolina plays in hard environments. And I'm not saying it's not going to be terrific. They went to Gonzaga several years ago. And not that necessarily any players on this team were a part of that, but you understand my point. It's going to be a great atmosphere, but that doesn't mean it's undoable.
Well, I think what everybody always kind of fails to take into account in this discussion, Carolina plays their home games at the Smith Center.
Yeah.
There's nowhere like the Smith Center in terms of just how the whole thing is. So, and the other factor is if you make shots, it's not going to be very loud in there. If you miss shots, it will be loud in there. So a lot of it depends on how you play. And just looking forward to seeing how the Tar Heels respond to this type of challenge, and glad they're taking it.
I do think at least early in the game, you lean on R.J. Davis and Cadeau a little bit. I mean, probably the two guys who have played, certainly R.J. Davis, that have played the most big minutes in big games. And that's not that R.J. Davis is going to go 8 of 8 from the field in the first half. He's had bad games and great games before. But I do think you need him to be good, particularly early, it feels like to me, just to settle into the game a little bit. I think he will be uber important for Carolina in that regard.
Well, unfortunately, there's a player right there on the Jayhawks roster who knows what happens to Carolina when R.J. Davis has a tough night. Rylan Griffin scored 19 against Carolina last year while R.J. was struggling in the NCAA tournament. So, yes, he's going to have an R.J. Davis type of game. And even that may not be enough because Kansas is very good. But you're going to need him to make some difficult shots and set the tone. And you mentioned Elliot Cadeau. I think he's going to be really important just in terms of controlling the tempo, managing everyone's emotions, not letting anyone freak out, and making sure Carolina's attacking the way that Hubert Davis wants to attack.
The game is at 7 o'clock tonight, Eastern time.
Yeah, not 9.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, hold on, Adam. But you don't just get a drive home when it's over.
That is true.
There's a little bit of a journey after the game is complete.
We'll still make it back before Monday, I bet. Like before we did.
Oh, I was about to say, I certainly hope we're home before Monday.
We're actually taking a covered wagon back, James. Yeah, that's why the itinerary isn't out yet.
Yeah, I was hoping we'll be back before Monday. And then Carolina doesn't play again for another week. They host American next Friday, so a week from today, in the Smith Center for their next action. And then the Tar Heels they may as well pack up the covered wagon because they're going to be gone for a while after that, including that long trip to Maui. So a lot going on and a really stiff early test for the Tar Heels. Adam, anything else on this one? Carolina and Kansas coming up tonight in Lawrence?
No.